White people. The majority of people in first world countries have a whiter skin tone or European ancestral timeline. But is it okay to have this pigmentation? Tonight on TMF Debates, we aim to answer the question, is it okay to be white? By showing the two major sides of this debate and then leaving you to decide. On tonight's debate, we have pro, who's adamant that it is okay to be white. And then we have anti, who's not so sure that we should allow white privilege to continue to flourish. The breakdown for today's episode will be as follows. First, we'll have our opening statements. Then we'll lead into a verbal fisticuffs, ending with closing remarks. If at any point you hear anything you agree or disagree with, please join the debate by commenting in the comment section down below. Now, pro, since you started last debate, anti, we're going to give you the first turn. What are your opening statements?
Thank you, moderator. White people are rarely, if ever, confronted with the fact they are white. They can easily go about their day-to-day lives and never see another person of a different color until they turn on the TV. In contrast, minorities know they are different from the moment they wake up to the moment they turn on the TV. This is a subtle and unconscious reality that overwhelms the emotions of minorities. Thus, white people can never truly understand what it means to be a minority. Yes, it is okay to be white, but it is no longer okay for being white to mean that you can be privileged over everyone else who isn't.
Coming out of the gates swinging today, I see. Well, with that, pro, what are your opening statements?
Thank you, moderator. There is nothing wrong with being white, nor does it inherently mean that you will be rich and successful. There are many poor white folk across the world, and many more whom have to work every day of every year to get any semblance of success. Personal responsibility needs to be pushed upon every citizen for their own feelings and success in life. If you don't feel like you belong or know anyone that's like you, then get online, or if you don't have a computer, go to the library and find an online community that's like you. Feeling like you don't belong in this day and age is as much of a self-made prison as the regressive left's witch hunt on white folks for simply just being people.
Now, viewer, you have the anti, you have the pro. Now, let's TMF debate.
Your opening makes it sound like you believe racism is over, as if any logical person could believe that. White people are so privileged thanks to the subconscious pervasive perceptions that have been ingrained in our race for generations. Never before has it been commonplace for anyone who isn't white to be seen as default in America or the Western world. From advertisements to TV shows, we find a lack of diverse representation, meaning that white people will just blend into our environment as normal. Our species has evolved to identify threats to our environment, and if you've never been exposed or if you're rarely exposed to a person of color, then just interacting with them would, by definition, mean that they are new, a new addition to the environment. And those new additions are often perceived as threats. And this is why affirmative action is so necessary, to ensure that employment opportunities are as free from this underlying bias as much as possible.
I never said racism was over. In fact, it has never before been so alive thanks to people like you, whom are attacking the majority of people. To be clear, you could be from the UK, England, Ireland, Poland, the Netherlands, and many, many other places and still be considered white. This fact alone should dismiss your desire to push for affirmative action, as it would discredit the periods of time that these whites were slaves themselves. I can make out from your response that you are empathetic to the plights of minorities, and I am as well. However, that should not automatically mean that past suffering should give you a leg up in life. Doing so would go against the American dream of hard work paying off. However, if you're actually going to be pushing for any sort of recompense, how about we start with the minority that has suffered the most, the Native American, because no other minority has suffered more than they within the borders of the USA.
You're quite brave to bring up genocide of the Native Americans while being on the pro-white side. You can't mention slavery or genocide. or persecution of minorities in America without having to acknowledge that the vast majority of it was done by white people. Who committed the greatest genocide of all time? White people. Who then went to write off this genocide as an act of helping savages become civilized? White people. You can't mention minority suffering and slavery in America without having to acknowledge that it was done by the whites. This is a fact that many millennials overlook in their "why can't we all just get along" stance. While modern white folk may have not committed the crimes their ancestors did, they can no longer ignore that they have profited tenfold off of people who have justified genocide. We can't all just get along because the past dominance of the whites is still the present reality for the vast majority of minorities. We can no longer ignore the privileges that white people have had bestowed upon them thanks to slavery and genocide.
Again, not all white folks. You can't simply lump everyone of European descent into the same category whenever it fits your purposes. I understand for the convenience of clarity that it helps to use umbrella terms. But what you seem to fail to realize is in doing so, you are as misguided in your attacks against whites as the whites were in attacking the natives. The diverse ethnic variety that falls under the term white includes peasants, slaves, and monarchs all in one. The main danger in your generalizing of white people is the fact that not every white person is going to start with a silver spoon in their mouth and come from a rich family. Just like not every minority is going to come from a poor family and have the deck stacked against them to such a degree that ensures we need affirmative action. The law had its place. However, affirmative action continues to push a racist agenda, insisting that white folks or anyone of European descent is not as deserving of an education or of employment as a minority who may be equally or lesser qualified. You may speak about wanting to ensure a racially equal future, however, you'll never get there if you continue to persecute based on umbrella terms.
Yes. Maybe not all white folks, but you have to admit that the people who have been pushing this "it is okay to be white" narrative are the ones who support white supremacy and genocide. A simple fact that you seem to keep overlooking, Pro.
Saying that the position "it is okay to be white" encourages white supremacy is nothing more than a poorly constructed diversion to the actual topic at hand.
Moving on, though, I will concede to the fact that I have been lumping white people into a single group, and that's only because the research that I've done for this episode is based off of census data. We can only work with the best information we have at the time. Furthermore, Pro, your logic is flawed as it implies that we all have the same opportunities as a birthright, which is not true. Affirmative action, though, does nothing to solve the issue that minorities are still treated as the other category in our society. Honestly, Pro, we can look at any area of life, and white people will still be at the top, which is a point you still haven't directly addressed.
I agree that not everyone has the same opportunities in life, but what you fail to realize is that we're talking about human lives here. Humans that need employment, and if we continue to have minority quotas, which are technically illegal, we will only continue to divide and single out white folks for persecution. You can't fight fire with fire in this context, and I don't think that white people being the dominant majority for media, TV, any sort of advertisement is necessarily a bad thing or pushes minorities into an other category. It just makes sense. There are literally more of them, so it would make sense that they would feel these.
There are more of them because they have either literally or figuratively killed off all other competition, or they've imprisoned them. White privilege isn't as simple as having better odds at succeeding in life. It's the fact that white people don't have to worry if a cop will be suddenly afraid or suspicious of them. White people never have to worry if they're an intimidating posture or not. Heck, white people don't even have to worry if they want to wear a hoodie with the hood up. All of these that I've mentioned, an inconceivable amount more, are the reality of every minority in their day to day. Then add on the fact that if they see any type of media, they just see yet another white person, which I don't know how you don't see an issue with that. Everyone in this world deserves to feel like they belong, not just to feel like they're a side attraction to the main event.
Oh, come on. People who do bad things are going to get in trouble, get arrested, or worse, get shot in the modern world. You can't say that every minority who gets arrested is completely innocent and not sound as racist as you already do by insisting that everyone of European descent is privileged. The world is not that simple. Simply hiring minorities for the sake of having a diverse workforce won't be a magical fix and will only serve to single out white people for persecution. The civil rights movement showed us that we want to judge a person based off of their character and merit and not the color of their skin. If a minority sees a white person in a show or an ad and can't extrapolate emotion and see themselves in there, that's their problem, not mine. Our pets seem to have no problem with getting along with other breeds and other fur patterns, so why can't we expect humans to do it as well?
You know, Pro, I must hand it to you. You have a remarkable ability to reason away reality. Sure, cats and dogs are capable of getting along with other cats and dogs of different breeds, and there are other people that can do that as well. However, you cannot escape the reality that without minority quotas, the white dominance of all forms of media will continue. And I don't know how you continue to not see an issue with that. People are completely capable of being empathetic and still feeling lesser because they never see themselves represented in a show or movie or a magazine or a TV ad or otherwise. This is partly why books are so enticing, because you can imagine the character however you want them to, just based off of their character traits. I know we agree that people should be valued, but it really seems to me that you aren't willing to accept the burden that white people need to take on for equality to become a reality. Equality may come with some growing pains. Losing privilege feels like oppression, they say. And deny as you may, but white privilege is alive and well today. Why else would there be so much whining and complaining from white people who just have to deal with a smidgen of oppression that minorities have had to deal with for centuries? Heck, there are white people that feel so privileged that they even are suing corporations for deciding that they would benefit from having not a 100% white workforce. The fact that they feel so deserving to be hired over a minority is sickening, and your denial is even worse.
Whoa, 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 all right, let's stop right there before I have to break up a physical fight, because I'm not sure how to edit that just yet. Anti, since you started, Pro, what are your closing remarks?
Anti has mistaken being white for being rich, for being a celebrity, for being immune to law enforcement, to automatically getting employed, and to many, many other situations that many middle-class and lower-class white people will never and have never experienced in their entire lives. I find it highly illogical that we need to insist that we treat white people unfairly to get to a place in the world where we treat everyone fairly. If we want to have racial equality, let's do just that and go for it. Not take a huge step back and start promoting widespread racism once again. We need more people willing to break from the programming and understanding that white people will bleed, cry, and need as much as any black, Latino, red, Asian, or any other person needs to as well. Saying it is okay to be white should never be taken as a defense for white supremacy. Saying it is okay to be white wouldn't even be offensive to Martin Luther King Jr., whom understood that we want to judge somebody based on their character and not their color. Saying it is okay to be white is doing just that. Saying that it is okay. And I think any rational person watching will agree with me that it is okay to be white because white people are people and there's nothing wrong with being a person.
Good summary, Pro. Now, Anti, what are your closing remarks?
Forgiving the past does not change the present. White privilege has soaked deep and has forever been ingrained into Western culture. We cannot logically sing Kumbaya like Pro is suggesting, and overnight what things get better for minorities. What Pro continues to fail to realize is that when we go to a movie, when we hear the word person, when we stop to look around our town and nation, we by and large only see the white experience. White people dominate every company, every career path, and every section of life that we will literally have to revamp our way of living to represent non-white people. Thanks to some social progress recently, we have started to de-whiteify Hollywood's movies, TV shows, advertisements, and much, much more. Representing non-whites over whites is not racist against whites. It is simply trying to correct a wrong and include everyone into the human experience. This new racism that Pro is complaining about is just white people finally getting a smidgen of what true racism feels like. And yes, no longer being on top will take some growing pains, but the quality white people, those we want as allies, will eventually get over it and accept their place as nothing special, just like the rest of us.
Thank you, Anti. Man, both of you have made some pretty good points today, and I'm not entirely sure where I land on is it okay to be white? But where do you land, viewer? You've seen both sides, and now you can decide for yourself. And join the debate by commenting in the comment section down below. Thank you very much for spending your time with me, and now let's wrap this episode up. Please make sure you hit the notification bell down below to make sure that you join the debate, and follow us in 2 weeks when we conclude this with a part 2 with a TMF middle ground. If you like what I do on this channel, please check the description box for easy to follow me links across the interwebs, and for my Patreon page to truly join the debate. Now, as always, this has been TMF, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the time in whatever zone you find yourself. Dittas!